Hi there, welcome to 5 Minute Art School. This is a bit of a weird thing because I just recorded this on Instagram and IGTV, but I didn't save the file, so I have to re-record it for the YouTube channel. So pardon the discrepancies. Maybe I'll actually keep it to 5 minutes this time since I've already done it before. So I wanted to show you how to keep muddy colors as a way of unifying your palette overall. I labeled the palette already so you can see if you want to pause and record what I have here. For the demo, what I did was mix lemon yellow, cad red light, and alizarin crimson, and Prussian blue. And that's what we get this kind of reddish pile. And then from there, I started adding either a little bit more yellow or a little bit more blue. The Prussian blue is so strong, it just, blew up everything. What was interesting is before I added the blue, the yellow and red were pretty close together, right? And then as I added the blue, it became more distinct. That's obviously yellower, that's obviously redder. And yet they're still muddy. So there's kind of a family resemblance happening here, which is an old master technique to help keep the overall painting unified. And so whenever you're using a color, it's ultimately tied in with the other colors in the whole image. There's something of a family connection there, tying it all together. And very rarely do you get a color that just stands alone by itself. An interesting thing to watch out for is people wearing red caps, men with red caps, sometimes with red capes, but mostly hats for some reason. That's the thing Nikki Covington pointed out to me years ago. And ever since then, it's like, where all these red hats come from? Anyway, tangent. Another interesting thing to think about in this unified color palette is using the suffix with your colors. That's a yellower color, but that's very gray, right? If we pull that off just by itself and you just saw that color without the context of the other things, it actually looks more greenish. But next to that red, it's obviously yellow. That's a really fun thing to think about when you're putting colors next to each other in context. Colors are all about context. And this unity is so important because it not only brings this really beautiful sense of harmony to the whole image, that everything feels connected, interconnected with everything else, but it also can introduce this kind of sense of mystery. It's easier on the eyes. So there's not a jarring shifting of gears from one color to the next, like tends to happen in a lot of contemporary art, which uses high chroma, really punchy colors. It's kind of like eating Doritos and Mountain Dew all the time, right? Just so saturated for your taste buds, it's so saturated for your eyes. And we see this a lot of times with images. I see it a lot in landscape photography, where the chroma is just like amplified to the nth degree, and it's so stimulating for the eyes. Old master technique is very subdued, right? Yeah, there's a certain argument that over time the varnishes have darkened, things were a lot brighter back in the day. Yeah, that's true sometimes. But overall, there's a greater sense of harmony in those paintings, and that's what a lot of people find attractive about Rembrandt, for example. The browns and the blacks, it's amazing. It just feels like I could spend a lifetime in that painting, where sometimes the high chroma photography, there's kind of an initial zap of, ooh, wow, that's electrifying. But after a while, the stress on my eyeballs takes a toll. So keeping a unified color palette and using a lot of grays is a way of just building that into the framework of the painting. I wanted to show you something. I just started yesterday, This is a sketch. This is not finished, so please bear with my dirty laundry. I'm sorry. But I wanted to show this to you because notice how close the value contrast is in the shadowed areas, right? Obviously, I want that arm to come out of the flesh color. It's all the same flesh color. But notice how close in value all these things are. Just that subtle shadow that sets off the modeling of the form. Notice how subtle the highlights are. There's not bright white. Even over here on the ball, I want the cross to stand out. But the highlight on that sphere that he's holding, the globe, very subtle, right? I mean, that's not harsh. And this shadow down here, I'm mixing in some of this red along with some of the brown, which is actually a combination of red and raw umber. So it keeps it a little bit lighter. You can kind of see up here on the halo, it's a little bit more reddish next to that yellow. And when you squint your eyes, notice how things unify together. It just all kind of hangs in one form. The flesh tones, the legs are obviously cut off by that red cloak, but even that red cloak stays pretty unified, right? I mean, these shadows, the strongest shadows, they need to be there, but notice they're not black. They're far from black. They're obviously red. Yeah? So I bring this up in part because our world tends to be so fractured and politicized, and it's important to remember that there's more keeping us together than there is keeping us apart. There's very little distinction between me as a human and someone that lives on the opposite side of the world in terms of the desires of my heart, what motivates me, what makes me happy, right? So that's the life lesson in some ways. But overall, just make it beautiful. And this is one way of doing that. So I hope you enjoyed this. Hope it's useful and meaningful. Leave a comment, leave a like, share it, subscribe, all that stuff. Love having you here. Great to see you. Thanks for being with me. Bye.